And so this is a situation that I hope to correct, where we name schools for people we forgot. Right? And hopefully this isn't the case with Father Duenas. Hopefully I don't ask somebody, why is the school named Father Duenas? And the answer is, because he built the school. He didn't live long enough to do that. Hopefully you guys all know who Father Duenas was. But the story of the school comes after Father Duenas. And it's all because of one man. So never doubt for a moment that you as one person, as one man, cannot make a huge difference in life. Because none of this would be here if it weren't for one man. And that one man was a Capuchin priest who lived here. Next slide. In downtown Manhattan, New York City. He lived on West 34th Street, which is right across from Madison Square Garden Penn Station, the hub of Manhattan. So imagine you are a priest in the middle of what could be arguably the capital of the world, New York City, and all that hustle and bustle and importance and significance, and you are told, guess what? We're sending you to be a priest, actually bishop, in this place. Destroyed by American bombs in the summer of 1944. This is your new church, Father, soon to be bishop, and this is your cathedral. Next. Oh, but the people are very devout Catholics. Next. Very strong, devout, pious Catholics. But they have no priests. Because the American priests were all shipped to prison of war camp in Japan. Next slide. The guy in the circle in the white habit is Father Adalbert. Oh, they did have 2 Chamorro priests that the Japanese couldn't ship off because they're native. Next slide. But one of the 2 is dead now. You have 1 native priest and a bombed out cathedral. And almost everything else in the church, besides Umadak Church and Inarahan Church, almost everything else is bombed to smithereens. Welcome to your new diocese, Bishop Baumgartner. Next. Imagine if you were in Baumgartner's shoes. But he came, August of 1945. Next slide. And Bishop Baumgartner knew he couldn't let this situation continue, that the Catholic people of Guam had to rely on foreign priests, Americans, but not native to the island. Because the war experience taught that lesson, that we needed a native clergy, Chamorro priests serving Chamorro people, 1945. Guam is different now. And so he procured the land across from the site where Father Jesus Baza Duenas lost his life to the Japanese. To uphold Father Duenas, whose priesthood was cut short by the blade of a Japanese saber, so that the legacy of Father Duenas would continue in 100 more and new Father Duenases who would come after him through this school, Father Duenas Memorial School and Seminary. Next slide. And so he gave it over to a group of priests called the Stigmatines, who ran the school from its conception 75 years ago, 1948, until 1959. The Stigmatines were a very small group of priests who were rather well educated. And they almost all came from Massachusetts or the surrounding area of New England. So they were not only very well educated, they were prim and proper and very classy guys. And Baumgartner thought these Stigmatines would impart to the future priests of Guam the same education and class. Next. And so the school was founded primarily for the priesthood. And so we had seminarians who came to Father Duenas tuition free, supported by the vicariate at the time and then diocese. And they went to classes in their white cassocks and blue sash, blue for Mary, Our Lady of Cameron. And in order to financially support the school accepted day students who didn't wear a tie every day, but for the yearbook they wore a tie. So both the day students and the seminarians made up the student population. And in the beginning, it was almost 50-50. Half the students were seminarians. That was the heart and soul of Father Duenas. Next slide. As you can see there, the numbers of seminarians we had in those days. And the quad was already built where the Phoenix Center is now. So that was the 1950s. Next slide. And seminarians often make new priests. And Father Duenas was producing most of the native clergy up until the 1990s, both diocesan, like the late Father Tony Perez on the left, and Capuchin, like Father Pat Castro, who's still with us, and also Father Joe English, who's still with us, Capuchins. All three alumni of Father Duenas, plus many more. I only have 15 minutes. So I only limited myself to these three examples. Next slide. The Capuchins took over in 1959 when the contract with the Stigmatines was up and the Stigmatines decided not to renew. The Capuchins were not professional teachers. The Capuchins lacked the class of the Stigmatines, as you can see up here with me. But we're the Marines of the church, and if you tell us to do the dirty job, we'll do it. We'll learn along the way. And one of the principals was Father Mel on the left there, who's wearing a brown habit like I am. Keep that in mind for an upcoming slide. There were also diocesan priests that were teaching alongside the Capuchins. In the next slide, you can see 3 Capuchins and 1 diocesan. 59 to 74, the longest stretch, was run by us. Next slide. One of the lasting legacies of the Capuchins was the fact that you guys in your sports are all called friars. And the reason for that is because prior to the Capuchins, Father Duenas did not have any sports program. Okay, so the Capuchins from downtown Manhattan, we're the ones who started the sports program at Father Duenas. And therefore, the teams are called the friars. And there you have some of the friars showing off their lower assets in the right picture. Next slide. As I said, the Capuchins were not really meant for the job, and so we gave it up in 1974 when Bishop Flores asked the Maris brothers. The full name of the Maris brothers is the Maris Brothers of the Schools. They were founded precisely to run and teach in schools. And they were here from 74 to 88. Next slide. Now these Maris brothers were the American Maris brothers stationed in the Philippines. But the Filipino Maris were increasing in number. And so the American Maris in the Philippines were not as needed as before. And so, as the Maris brothers got older, and the Filipino Maris were taking their place, they said, go to Guam. And so there's Brother Francis on the left, and Brother Tom, who was my physiology teacher on the right. And that was the school uniform in those days. Black shirt, black pants, so easy. Just go to Ben Franklin and you have your school uniform. Next slide. And then when the Marists left, there were two priests, Father Myron Effing and Father James Greer, who took over for just 1 year each. And then the school had to move to lay leadership. So there's Jack Stetton Benz and Bill Roth, may they rest in peace. Okay, they were just two of the first lay leaders. Okay, and the next slide. But the dream, of course, was Bishop Baumgartner's, who wanted to continue the sacrifice of Father Duenas in giving his life, as our alma mater says, for God and for Guam. And the next slide. Fortes in fide, strong in the faith. Not just strong in mathematics, not just strong in science, strong in the faith. Is this legacy going to continue? This is what remains in the hands of the present administration, faculty, and you guys in your careers and life in the future. Next slide. Or is that it? Oh, that's it. Thank you very much.